Jessie David from Wani, and joining me today is Greg Mackintosh of Paradise Lost. How are you doing today?
Hi, Jessie. Yeah, I'm good. Kind of a little bit stir-crazy from being locked down for 2 months, but finding things to do. So, yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I mean, for you, it's kind of timing-wise. You have the new home studio now, so I'm sure you can utilize that at least.
Yeah, it's weird. You would think I would get lots done, but for some reason I'm feeling an extreme lack of motivation. I think a lot of people are feeling that. It's like you find it hard to get out of your pajamas because there's no goal at the end of it. I think that's what it is. We don't know when our next show will be. I intend to get in there and get some stuff done over the coming couple of months, hopefully.
Well, I think May especially is going to be exciting for you guys because your 16th studio album drops, Obsidian. Tell me about the album.
It's weird that it's dropping in a time like this. When we recorded it at the beginning of the year and the end of last year, we couldn't really have foreseen this situation. But we felt it was important to bring it out on time. We were asked by Nuclear Blast if we wanted to put it back. And we thought it's kind of even more important at a time like this that people utilize art. They need books and music and movies to keep them from going crazy, I guess. Obsidian it's kind of quite a varied album, really, up to the previous couple. It's, I guess, quite eclectic. Lots of stuff going on in there. It's a little bit introspective, a little bit reflective, quite sad. There's some classic-y Paradise Lost moments on it, but there's some newish elements in there, and there's also quite a lot of classic gothic elements as well, I guess.
Well, I think that's really what I kind of love and appreciate with you guys, because you can get this combination of misery and melody, right? Each album kind of has a little bit of both, and it's truly a beautiful thing. And over the years, your sound has changed. I mean, you're still gothic metal, but there's doom, there's death, there's a little bit of everything. So for this upcoming album, where would you say this album stands on the spectrum?
Well, it wasn't intentional when we were writing it. We just took it a song at a time. But when I listen back to it now, and what I've heard from a few people, and I tend to agree with, is it's a little bit of a musical biography of the band.
Yeah.
It almost takes elements from every period of the band and jumbles them up. And like I say, it wasn't something that we planned on doing. We knew we wanted to do something a little more varied. But as we were writing the record, it just kept taking us down a different path until we finished writing it. And when we came to record it, we realised that we'd kind of incorporated most elements from our career, So it's I think that's just because maybe as you mature, you get a little bit more reflective, and that's just coming together in the music and the lyrics.
Well, you can definitely hear it. I mean, you listen to Falls from Grace, you can hear almost notes of the Medusa in there, right? It takes even the Plague Within. Each time you're releasing these albums, you're showcasing a new element of the band. So for Obsidian, how do you think it stands up to the last two albums?
I think it moves away from the last two albums, really, when you hear the full record. I mean, Fall from Grace it's a good introduction because it's like a stepping stone from Medusa.
Yeah.
It was the first song that we wrote for the record, so that's why that is. But I think once you get further into the album, or for instance, the opening track on the album is quite polarizing. It's something quite different. I think it moves away. I think it moves into, there's elements of Medusa in there and the Plague Within, but I think it moves into different territory. And each person who's heard it, who I do interviews with, brings up different eras of the band. Some people can hear our Draconian Times album in it. Some people can hear other elements, and I love that. I think that's kind of where our strengths lie. Nick said it well when he was talking about this album to me. He said that. It's nice to do albums like Medusa, and it's nice to do things or host something that's completely off the ball, something different. But our strength does lie in this kind of melding of different influences into this sound. We can't do that every record, or otherwise it'd be too boring. But
sure.
It's. I think that's definitely what we've done on this record.
So walk me through the writing process. What comes first? How you piece together? Because it's been. You said you worked on it last year, so it's been some time. Walk me through that process.
We actually changed it up a little bit. When we came to write this record, it was something that I'd read a piece about David Bowie. And he was talking about how he wrote lyrics back in the day. And he used to write lots of interesting words down, words that sounded nice to him or had some meaning for him. And then he'd cut them all up and throw them on the floor and just see what random sentences appeared to him. And I tried to, and I just thought, I wonder if you can apply that to the musical side of things. So this time round, I started doing this thing where I would send our vocalist these very, very short musical segments, no more than a few seconds, and I would get him to do as many different vocal styles over the top of them as possible. So you get 5 or 6 different, like a falsetto, a deep vocal, a different melody, a gruff vocal, whatever, and then send them back to me, and then I would, it would be like really at random, like take the music away and then build it like a 1,000-piece jigsaw with no picture.
Yeah.
And it makes it really intuitive. It only took me 30 years to find it out, but it's really intuitive. It's really fast. We wrote the album in half the time that we would normally take, and we came up with results that surprised us. Things that we wouldn't necessarily have even thought about at the onset of the song. And at any one time, you've kind of got 4 or 5 different versions of each song, and you just choose a path to go down. So on my hard drive, I've probably got like 5 or 6 different versions of the entire album Obsidian that sound completely different, and this is just the one that stood out to us.
I mean, I've listened to the album. It's blown me away. It's probably one of my favorite albums that you guys have released, but trying this new writing process out, overall, how do you think it worked?
Well, it's the most fun I've had writing a record for as long as I can remember, and it was the least compromise between myself and Nick. We just really enjoyed doing it, and I guess that way of writing takes away the preciousness of each person with their respective parts, because in the traditional metal songwriting, where a guitar player would come up with basically a finished song full of riffs, give it to the vocalist, he would put the vocals over, and that's it. That's kind of handcuffs you in a way. It limits you because each person is very, very precious and protective about their own segments. And doing it this way, we didn't feel that at all. It was just like, wow, we've got all these parts. What can we do with these parts and make them, make them shine? And I think the only difficult bit about it was when you come to assemble the song, when you have all the parts and you try to put it together as a song, that's where the difficulty comes in, because of course you have to make sure the hooks work and the chord progressions work, etc.
Going off of this writing process, what really blows me away is how fresh your riffs sound, because you've been doing this for a while, and even the track Forsaken, there's a great solo in there. Ending Days has an amazing guitar melody. So how do you keep that crisp sound over all these years?
I think it's just treating it as a learning curve, the whole thing. I mean, I'm just constantly have this thirst for knowledge and in all aspects of my life, but especially in music, where I hear things every day that I just think, wow, what a great idea, and I think that's it. I think just if you keep being surprised by people's creativity, then it only serves to enhance your own and inspire you. And I just think I've never run out of sources of inspiration. If you don't, then that keeps your stuff fresh, I suppose.
So you also have a side project as well. Valenfire is put to rest, but you still have STRIGIO as well, right? So
that's right.
When it comes to writing, how do you manage to write songs for both Paradise Lost and STRIGIO, and how does your songwriting differ for each?
It's kind of completely different, really. I've just told you how we wrote the new Paradise Lost record, but lyrically, 70% of the lyrics come afterwards. 30% happen as we're writing the song, and 70% happen sort of after, when he's trying to fit the mouthing of the words over. You know how they fit in rhythmically, I guess you could say. With STRIGIO, it's exactly the opposite almost. I asked Chris to write the lyrics because whilst I was capable of doing them in Ball and Fire, I kind of found out that I just don't like writing lyrics.
Yeah.
It's just not something that I enjoy. I find it quite intimidating and sometimes laborious as well. And so with Strigoi, he wrote all the lyrics, and then I took inspiration from the lyrics and wrote the music. So it was completely back to front of how we do things with Paradise Lost, really. And I think the way I separate it out, I did them back to back. The day I finished writing the Strigoi record, I started writing the Paradise Lost record.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's all about moods. It's about feels. I'm like that when I listen to music. I don't listen to music and think, this sounds like that, this sounds like that. It's kind of what imagery it makes me think of. Like, for instance, if I listen to some music and it makes me think of thunderclouds rolling in across the sea or something like that, that's how I think of music, and that's how I kind of try to interpret it. So Strigoi would be something that was very kind of unnerving and makes you on edge almost, and it's quite dissonant. And Paradise Lost is this bittersweet, melancholic, reflective, introspective element to it. And I think doing stuff like Strigoi and Valenfire has helped me focus a lot more on what elements should be in Paradise Lost over the last few years.
Are you working on anything for Strigoi right now?
I started yesterday because I managed to get up some motivation. And I'm just playing around, really. Chris already sent me some lyrics, so I'm kind of feeding off
Do you have a
the
vision or a
inspiration
direction where you kind of want to go?
I don't know. I kind of liked the some of the elements that were added last to the Strigoi record were some of the black metal elements and some of the almost industrial type elements, harsh noise type elements. So, I'm mixing all those stuff in. I love all the old school death metal stuff and crust punk stuff, but I think it's more interesting if I bring those other elements that I mentioned in even more next time round.
There's a little grindcore in there as well, which I appreciated on my end.
Oh, absolutely. That was a life-changing moment for me when we did our first gig with I think it was the A side of Scum, Napalm Death. We used to do gigs with them, and it just used to blow my mind. Like, wow, this is like a revolution in music or something at the time. It was like, I guess it was my generation's Sex Pistols in a way.
Love that. So I want to go back to Obsidian. It seems like a very interesting album name. What inspired that name, and is there a story there?
Originally we were throwing a few names around between us, and depending on who you listen to, Nick said I brought the word up first, but I'm pretty sure that he talked to me about it first. I'm pretty sure he just said, what do you think of Obsidian? And he said, do you know what it is? I said, yeah, it's this volcanic rock. It's very hard, shiny and black, and we knew that, and it's kind of metaphorically fits, But then when we started looking into some of the folklore that surrounds it, I found it way more interesting and even more apt, really, because one thing that really stood out to me, actually, when I was reading about it was a certain people believed that if you made a mirror out of obsidian and you looked into it, you could see the past, present, and future all at once. And it would also act as a portal to another world. And I thought, metaphorically speaking, that really does sum up what we were going for on this record. It's escapism.
God, that's so fitting, too.
Which would be the otherworldly thing, and the past, present, and future thing is kind of this musical biography of the band on one record, So it just really kind of hit home that that has to be the title now,
I even really love the artwork. At first glance, it comes off simple, but there's a lot of detail there. The hearts, the nails. So, who does your album artwork, and what was the idea here?
We change it every time. We're always keen to. We never get an artist involved until we have the album mixed and finished, and we sit back and we think, how does this, how do we interpret this in images? So it's different every time. And when we would finish this one up and we got the title Obsidian, we actually thought, the folklore element, this like almost pagan-esque imagery and symbolism was something that would really fit it. And I was just trolling Instagram, and I found this guy called Adrian Baxter. And I thought it was an American guy at first, but I contacted him, and I just said, I really love your style. It's like this, it's just the kind of symbolism that we're looking for our new album. And it turns out he lives not too far from our vocalist, Nick. He's actually a Yorkshireman.
Oh, that's
too.
wild.
Yeah, wild. And he basically needed no guidance whatsoever. He said, I know exactly what you want. And he came up with all these things. And everything you see, like from the nails to the teeth to whatever's on there, are all some element of that almost pagan folklore. It's not that we believe it, it's just something interesting.
Yeah.
And, like the nails and the teeth, they're all either something like, a protective thing or something to ward off spirits or something that meant something to those people at that time. And then in the middle of the record, it was Adrian's idea, the artist, to put the White Rose of York, which we had never thought about in our entire career, that using the symbol from where we grew up.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And we thought, can we use that? Is that too cheesy, or is it too patriotic, or what is it? And then we just thought, no, that's actually sums us up completely. Because as much as you grow older and you think you're not a product of your surroundings or your parents or whatever, as you get older, you kind of realize that that's exactly what you are. You're a sum of all your experiences from growing up, and we are very much Yorkshiremen, and the White Rose of York made perfect sense. This downtrodden working class point of view, this sentiment and this self-depreciating sense of humour, and it kind of all makes the band what it is. So it made perfect sense.
Oh God, I love that. Normally we're living in weird times, and normally once an album drops, a tour, it's sure to follow. But how does COVID-19 kind of affect that? And do you have any plans to work around that?
Yeah, it's just really, really bizarre. I mean, since I was 18, I've been on a stage every 2 or 3 weeks of my life at least. I've never had any time off really from that, and I never thought I'd crave it this much. But I've had 2 months where I haven't done anything there live, and I'm really hankering to get back to it. It's one of them things that I'm getting really weird signals from the industry where they're almost gearing up for a permanent change in the music scene, which is quite daunting, really. They're talking about bands, fans, promoters, everyone in general may have to adapt permanently as to how music happens and gets across to fans. I mean, I hope that's not the case, but I guess they're just being cautious. But as far as us playing live, I mean, we can't really do any touring yet. All festivals are being cancelled this summer. The thing we're still aiming for is in September we're going to play the album in its entirety. We're still aiming for that, and we're going to continue to aim for it until the last minute. If it doesn't happen, then you can't say we didn't try. And just fingers crossed that some kind of live scene comes back by the end of the year, autumn or something. But realistically, from what I'm hearing, it's looking like next year for a lot of people.
I'm with you. I'm also jonesing for those concerts. I mean, we're living in wild times, right? So hopefully September seems like it's far away. So fingers crossed, right? Yeah.
I mean, we were supposed to do it in May with the album's release, but it just is what it is. I think this whole situation, it's just going to take a lot of patience from fans, bands, promoters, managers, everyone alike, and understanding, and hopefully we'll get through it. I mean, we just need we need stuff like this right now. Nuclear Blast saying we should put it back. I think that was a strange recommendation, and I know some bands have taken it, but it's even more important you have stuff like this right now,
I agree, 100% agree. The interview we chatted about how Obsidian, it sounds like some of your older stuff, and it really it ties in the roots of the band. So when you're releasing a new album, how do you find a balance in creating something new while also maintaining your sound?
I think maintaining the sound is something that we don't even have to think about. It's something that's completely ingrained in us. And even when we try and, we go off on one and really diversify on a track or whatever, it still ends up sounding like us for some reason. It's like we couldn't get away from it if we wanted to. So I mean, but some songs on this record I will have thought, wow, that's so different for this band. And then when I listen back to it, I'm like, oh, wow, it just still sounds like us. And it's not something that I actually even contemplate when I'm doing it. I think it's just we have a certain way of playing and a certain style of songwriting that we honestly can't move to. There's just this common thread that ties it all together. And if I knew what it was, there'd be some kind of formula, but yeah. I don't know what it is, you know.
Well, Obsidian drops May 15th. You can pre-order it right now. Greg, is there anything you would like to say to your fans?
Just have a little patience. Don't go crazy. Don't go looting. Listen to some good music. Obsidian might help you with that. I've no idea. But yeah, just get through this time, and hopefully we'll all be back in concerts around the world before long. You know.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today.